let's talk about The River is Waiting by Wally Lamb. This is receiving a lot of attention right now and mostly positive reviews. I'm here to be the opposite opinion. This was my first Wally Lamb book, so I really wasn't really sure what I was getting into, but I read it because I joined a book club and they wanted to read it. And unfortunately, it turned out to be one of those I'm going to tell you, not show you kinds of books in such a strong way that I found it infuriating, especially when it came to race and politics. I can tell that Lamb was trying so hard to make some very valuable and true points about historical inequities when it comes to the prison industrial complex in the United States. However, I think there were a number of things he could have done better in order to actually address those things. First of all, our main character, Corbin, or Corby, as he likes to be called, is a white man, and I think he's treated better by the prison system than a lot of his other characters are in the book when it comes to the actual trial situation and everything. With that being said, there are a number of terrible things that do happen to Corby in prison, so I'm not here to justify any of that or anything. I do have a lot of sympathy for his character and the ultimate outcome of what happens to his character, but to backtrack a little bit, I personally have a really hard time reading books that are centered around an unlikable protagonist, and unfortunately, Corby is the perfect example of an unlikable protagonist. Lamb really tries to give him depth and a character arc and some growth, but I really never felt like it was true. Lamb discusses Corby as this tragic father figure who, he's in prison because of an accident. His son sadly, tragically passes away because he accidentally backs over him after, drinking and drugging. And it takes him a very, very, very long time to accept responsibility for that. And the only reason he continues to attend Narcotics Anonymous and AA is because he just doesn't want his wife to divorce him, which I don't think is a good enough reason. And oftentimes the people who are actually kind to him in prison and try to help him in prison, he is very dismissive of, he's cruel towards, being in his head is truly just, unpleasant. I don't know the best word other than unpleasant. And so that is another main reason I was not a huge fan of this book. And lastly, this is kind of a spoiler, so if you're interested in reading this book, I would step away, but my opinion is you probably shouldn't read it. After committing some time to it, that's what I have to say. But also from the very beginning, we have a very large emphasis from the author on the timeline and when specific dates of certain events are happening. And so this immediately kind of waved a flag in my face of okay, these dates matter. And it starts in about 2018, and he is put in prison for 2 years, I think is his sentence. I can't remember exactly. But whatever it was, I was like, oh, flag, this is going to be a COVID book. This is going to get to March 2020, and we are going to have a discussion about COVID and how prisoners were treated during the pandemic. And while I think that is a worthy thing to discuss because I think prisoners were treated terribly during the pandemic, this was just not necessarily the best book in order to do that through, especially because there's a massive time jump. We unfortunately go from the pandemic hitting to 2 years later, and we get none of the actual in between and what happened there. Another major flag of why this was going to be a COVID book is the prison mate that, is that right? Roommate, prison? I don't know what you're technically supposed to call your roommate in prison. Cellmate, your cellmate in prison. Corby's was a gay man who spoke a lot about his experience during the AIDS crisis, and while that is valuable, it was very kind of in your face, this is gonna be about a pandemic. And so, it felt strange that even though this cellmate discussed the AIDS crisis, it really never came until right before that time jump. You know, I was kind of suspecting it at some point to be about COVID, but then when we got that discussion about the AIDS pandemic, I was like, okay, so it definitely is going to be. And then that was it. There was nothing else about it. And I think that these subjects, COVID and AIDS, race and historical inequities within the prison industrial complex, these all deserve such depth and discussion. And I don't think that Liam gives them the time that they deserve in this book. I think it's commendable what he's trying to do. I just don't think it's there. And I know that I'm probably in the minority here, but this one didn't work for me, unfortunately. It was just fine. I don't think it was bad, but I don't think it was good, and it is not one that I would suggest people devote time to given the length of it and how I felt it was unpleasant to be in Corby's mind, unfortunately, and it's all told from his perspective. So that is my 2 cents about this book. If you've read it and you enjoyed it, I'd love to hear why. Maybe we can talk about it because I haven't talked about it at book club yet, so I'm just intrigued on other people's thoughts. Thanks.